Elias Rowan stood at the edge of Dock 7, staring at the reflection in the polished alloy wall. The man looking back at him looked tired, slightly rumpled, and very much underdressed for history. The suit he wore was gray, not silver, not decorated, not impressive, just gray. It clung comfortably to his body, flexible at the joints, slightly worn at the edges. A faint seam ran along the arms where it had repaired itself more than once. To Elias, it was familiar. To everyone else on the station, it was a problem. Behind him, the doors to the conclave station slid open with a soft hum. The sound echoed in the wide corridor, and with it came the quiet tension of 1,000 expectations. "Ambassador Rowan," said the soft, careful voice of Liaison Tressick. "Before we proceed, we need to discuss your attire." Elias sighed, not loudly, but deeply. He had known this was coming. He turned slowly to face her. Tressick was tall and thin, her skin a smooth blue-green, her eyes wide and reflective like glass beads. She wore layers of flowing fabric that shifted color as she moved. Everything about her appearance said purpose and meaning. Everything about his said practicality. "I already know what you're going to say," Elias replied calmly. She tilted her head, a gesture he had learned meant concern. "Then you understand the seriousness." "I do," he said, "but I can't change." Tressick's eyes flickered, a sign of discomfort. "You won't change, or you can't?" "I can't," Elias repeated. "Ah, this is all I have." There was a long pause. Somewhere down the corridor, a group of delegates passed, their elaborate garments whispering against the floor. One of them glanced at Elias and quickly looked away. "This suit," Tressick said carefully, "is not suitable for a first contact summit. Many species consider attire an extension of intent. Right now, your intent is unclear." Elias almost laughed, but stopped himself. "That's fair," he said, "but it's still the truth." Tressick folded her hands together. "Human representatives were advised to bring ceremonial clothing." "We did," Elias said. "This is ceremonial." Her eyes widened slightly. "You cannot be serious." "I am," he replied. They began walking toward the central chamber, their footsteps echoing softly. The walls around them glowed with soft light, displaying patterns meant to calm visitors. Elias noticed none of it. His mind was already racing ahead. When humanity first received the invitation to the conclave, there had been months of preparation, language training, cultural studies, simulations. Entire committees argued over symbols, gestures, colors. Clothing had been discussed for weeks. In the end, the advice he received before departure had been simple: don't change. Be what you are. So he had packed light, very light. As they entered the waiting chamber, the atmosphere changed. Dozens of species occupied the vast circular room. Some floated, some perched, some stood on mechanical supports, or rested in pools of liquid. All of them wore something deliberate, and all of them noticed Elias. The murmurs were quiet, but unmistakable. Curious, unsettled. He didn't prepare. That must be a challenge. Is it unfinished? Is it a message? Elias kept his posture relaxed. He clasped his hands behind his back and waited. The suit adjusted its internal temperature automatically, reacting to the slightly cooler air. He barely felt it. Across the chamber, a delegation from the Volari collective shifted uneasily. Their garments shimmered with light, reacting to emotional states. Elias noticed a faint ripple of agitation. Tressick leaned closer. "You are being observed very closely." "I figured," Elias said. "Some believe you are insulting the conclave." "That's not my intention." "Intent is not always what is received," she replied. Elias nodded. "Same goes for humans." The signal tone sounded, low and resonant. The chamber quieted. A platform rose slowly at the center, indicating the start of the opening address. Delegates moved into position. Elias stepped forward with the others. As he walked, he felt the familiar weight of the suit shift with him. It was designed for long-term wear, for uncertain environments. It monitored air quality, radiation levels, microfractures. It could seal itself if needed. It had pockets in places most people would never think to check. It was not fancy. It was honest. When Elias reached his assigned position, he noticed the delegate beside him. A tall, crystalline being whose outer shell refracted light in sharp angles. "You are unchanged," the being said, its voice resonating softly through a translator field.
"Yes," Elias replied.
"Your species was warned." "Yes, yet you persist." Elias smiled faintly. "That's also accurate." The being paused, light flickering across its surface. "Is this garment symbolic?" "In a way," Elias said, "it means I'm ready." "Ready for what?" "For things to go wrong." The being did not respond immediately. The opening speaker began, a slow, melodic address about unity, cooperation, and shared futures. Elias listened, but he could feel the attention drifting back to him again and again. He was the simplest thing in the room. That, somehow, made him the strangest. During the recess, several delegates approached Tresic rather than Elias. He could hear fragments of conversation. Is he unprotected? Is it a worker uniform? Does it signify low rank? Tresic answered carefully, choosing neutral words. He represents humanity fully. One delegate, a being composed mostly of shifting mist contained within a transparent field. "Human," it said gently. "Why do you not display status?" Elias thought about it for a moment. "Because I don't have to," he said. The mist being pulsed faintly. "That is unusual." Elias nodded.
"We get that a lot." Another delegate joined them, its many eyes blinking independently. "Your clothing appears durable."
"It is," Elias replied.
"I've worn it for almost a year." "A single garment?" "Yes." The delegate made a clicking sound. "What if it fails?" Elias shrugged. "Then I fix it." The clicking stopped. Tresic watched from a distance, her expression unreadable. She had worked with dozens of species. None of them behaved like this. Later, as the session resumed, Elias finally took the floor. He was not scheduled to speak long, just a brief acknowledgement. When he stepped forward, the lights adjusted automatically. His suit darkened slightly to reduce glare. A few delegates leaned closer. "I am Elias Rowan," he said clearly. "I speak for Earth." He paused, letting the translator systems settle. "I am aware that my appearance is unexpected," he continued. "I apologize if it caused discomfort. That was not my goal." There was silence. "This suit," he said, touching the fabric lightly, "is what humans wear when we don't know what comes next. It keeps us alive. It adapts. It lasts."
Some delegates shifted.
"We were advised to bring something more impressive," Elias admitted. "But I was also advised not to pretend to be something we're not." He met the gaze of the chamber. "This is us." The silence stretched longer this time. When Elias stepped back, he felt the subtle shift in the room. Not acceptance, not rejection. Interest. Tresic approached him afterward, her voice low. "You may have complicated things." Elias smiled slightly. "I was hoping I did." She studied him for a moment, then sighed. "The Conclave has never encountered a species that treats survival gear as a diplomatic statement." Elias looked down at his suit, then back up. First time for everything. As the lights dimmed and the delegates dispersed, Elias felt something he hadn't expected. Not fear, not pride, but the quiet sense that by refusing to change, humanity had just made itself impossible to ignore. And the universe was beginning to notice. The Conclave station never truly slept. Lights dimmed, sounds softened, but movement never stopped. Delegates returned to their quarters, translators recalibrated, and the station quietly adjusted itself to hundreds of different biological needs. Elias Rowan walked through one of the main corridors alone, his footsteps steady, his thoughts less so. He could still feel the way the room had changed after he spoke. Not anger, not approval. Curiosity. In some ways, that was worse. Humans were used to curiosity. It often came before judgment. His suit shifted slightly as he moved, adjusting pressure at the knees. Elias barely noticed. He had worn it long enough that it felt like a second layer of skin. Maybe that was part of the problem. A soft chime sounded in his ear. "Ambassador Rowan," Tressek's voice said through the comm. "Are you available?" "Yes," Elias replied. "I'm heading back to my quarters." "I will meet you there," she said. "There are developments." Elias sighed quietly. "I was afraid you'd say that." When he reached his quarters, the door slid open with a whisper. The room was simple by conclave standards. Neutral colors, adjustable gravity, a single table, and a sleeping platform. Elias liked it that way. Tressek entered moments later. Her garments glowed faintly, a soft pattern that Elias recognized as controlled concern. "You are becoming a topic of discussion," she said without preamble. "I figured," Elias replied. He sat down on the edge of the platform. "Good discussion or bad?" "Neither," she said. "Intense." The being's surface flickered. "Your suit contains internal systems." "Yes." "Redundancies?" "Yes." "Repair capability?" "Yes." The being paused. "Why?" Elias thought for a moment. "Because the universe doesn't care if we're comfortable." That answer caused a ripple of quiet reaction among nearby delegates. The session began with reports, trade routes, communication standards, shared research proposals. Elias listened carefully, offering input only when asked. He noticed something strange. Whenever technical failure was mentioned, eyes drifted toward him. At one point, a delegate from a high-gravity world spoke of a minor habitat malfunction that had caused delays. The tone was heavy with embarrassment. Elias leaned forward slightly. "Did anyone get hurt?" he asked. "No," the delegate replied quickly. "But it was disruptive." Elias nodded. "Then it worked," he said. The chamber went quiet. "Worked?" the delegate repeated. "Yes," Elias said. "If the system failed safely, then it did its job." Murmurs spread. Tressek glanced at him sharply. Later, during a scheduled break, Elias found himself surrounded, not aggressively, but with purpose. Several delegates approached together. "You speak of failure as design," said one. "You accept it without shame," said another. "You wear it," said a third, gesturing toward his suit. Elias raised his hands slightly, palms open. "I don't mean to challenge anyone's culture," he said. "This is just how we survive." A delegate with layered metallic plates shifted. "Your species survived without perfection." Elias smiled faintly. "We survived because of imperfection." That answer lingered. Hours later, as Elias returned to his quarters, the station lights flickered, just for a moment. It was barely noticeable. A tiny shift in illumination. Most delegates paused, confused. Elias didn't stop walking. His suit adjusted instantly, compensating for the micro-change in power flow. He felt a soft vibration as internal systems checked environmental stability. An announcement followed quickly. Minor fluctuation. Systems stable. Around him, Elias saw visible relief. He also saw something else. Delegates looking at him, not with fear, with calculation. That night, Tressek visited again. This time, her garments were dim. "The station experienced a minor power imbalance," she said. "Yes," Elias replied. "I noticed. You were not concerned." "No," he said. "It happens." She studied him carefully. Many were.
Elias nodded. "That makes sense?"
She hesitated. "Some delegates believe your presence makes them feel unprepared."
Elias frowned. "That's not my intention."
"I know," she said, "but intent and impact are different. Elias looked down at his suit. We didn't come here to impress anyone, he said quietly. We came to be honest. Tressic was silent for a long moment. Honesty, she said slowly, is not always comfortable. Elias smiled tiredly. Neither is survival. The following session was closed door. Only select representatives were invited. Elias took his place at the table. The surface adjusted automatically to accommodate different forms. He noticed subtle changes in the room. Backup lighting, reinforced supports, emergency systems more visible than before. Someone had been thinking. A delegate spoke. Human ambassador. Your attire has prompted concern, debate, and unexpected introspection. Elias nodded. That tracks. You claim your species plans for failure. Yes. You assume systems will break? Yes. Does this not create distrust in your own creations? Elias shook his head. It creates respect, he said. If something can fail, we don't worship it. We improve it. Silence followed. Your clothing, another delegate said, appears to be a tool for survival. Yes. For long-term exposure. Yes. For uncertainty. Yes. A soft sound passed through the room, a collective reaction Elias couldn't quite read. You wear uncertainty, the first delegate said. Elias met their gaze. We live in it. When the session ended, Tressic walked beside him again. You are changing the tone of the conclave, she said quietly. Elias exhaled. I was hoping to avoid that. She gave a small, unfamiliar smile. Too late. As Elias returned to his quarters, he felt something settle into place. Humanity had not arrived with grand displays or polished symbols. They had arrived wearing what they trusted when nothing else could be trusted. And the galaxy, slowly and uneasily, was beginning to understand that this was not carelessness. It was preparation, and it made them nervous for reasons they could not yet explain. By the third cycle of meetings, Elias Rowan realized something important had shifted. It was not written in any official notice. No announcement was made. But when he entered the main chamber, the space felt different. Quieter, more focused. The casual movement of earlier sessions was gone. Delegates took their positions with care. Some arrived earlier than scheduled. Others adjusted their translator fields twice, as if afraid of missing something small. And almost all of them looked at Elias, not openly, not rudely, but deliberately. His suit responded to the room without his awareness. Temperature balanced, air quality confirmed, pressure equalized. Elias stood calmly, hands relaxed at his sides, the most ordinary figure in an extraordinary place. That ordinary presence now made people uneasy. The session opened with a technical briefing about shared infrastructure, a neutral topic, safe. Elias listened, but he noticed that every mention of stability, efficiency, or optimization was followed by a pause, as if the speakers were waiting. Finally, a delegate spoke what many were thinking. Human ambassador, said a being with a segmented body and slow, measured speech. Your species appears comfortable with risk. Elias considered the wording. We're comfortable with managing risk, he replied. The delegate's segments shifted. Is there a difference? Yes, Elias said. Risk exists whether we acknowledge it or not. Ignoring it doesn't remove it. Murs followed. Not disagreement. Processing. Another delegate leaned forward. Your suit continuously monitors failure states. Yes. You assume those states will occur. Yes. That assumption shapes your design philosophy. Yes. The delegate paused. Most species designed to prevent failure. Elias nodded. We do too, he said. We just don't assume we'll succeed every time. That answer stayed in the air longer than the translator delay required. During the recess, Elias found fewer people avoiding him. Instead, they watched. Some followed at a respectful distance. Others studied the suit itself, their eyes lingering on seams, material texture, subtle movements. One delegate finally approached directly. It was small, round-bodied, with soft bioluminescent markings that pulsed slowly. "You are not ashamed," it said. "Of what?" Elias asked. "Of being unadorned." Elias smiled faintly. "We decorate when things are safe," he said. "This isn't that." The being pulsed brighter. "Your people live expecting danger. We live expecting change," Elias corrected gently. "Danger is just one type of change." That response seemed to satisfy something. Later that cycle, something unexpected happened. The Conclave Station announced a planned systems test. Normally, these tests were scheduled far from active sessions. Quietly.
Carefully. This one was announced publicly.
"Environmental stabilization test," the station voice said. "Minor fluctuations expected. No risk." Around the chamber, tension rose. Elias felt it like a pressure shift, not physical, but emotional. He noticed how many delegates stiffened, how many adjusted their garments, how many checked status displays. Elias did none of those things. The test began. Lights dimmed slightly. Gravity shifted by a fraction. Air circulation altered. Nothing dangerous, but unfamiliar. Elias's suit compensated instantly. His body barely noticed the change. He remained steady, breathing evenly. Around him, reactions varied. Some delegates clutched supports, others froze. A few closed sensory organs entirely. The test lasted less than a minute. When normal conditions returned, relief swept the chamber. Elias realized he was being stared at again.
"You did not react," said a delegate quietly. Elias shrugged.
"It was controlled. It was uncertainty," the delegate corrected. "Yes," Elias said. "A small one." Tresic approached him afterward, her expression thoughtful. "That test was moved forward," she said quietly. "I guessed," Elias replied. "They wanted to see how humans respond," she admitted. "And?" Elias asked. "They are unsettled," she said. "Not because you panicked, but because I didn't," Elias finished. Tresic nodded. That evening, Elias received an unusual request. A delegation asked to inspect his suit, not copy it, not dismantle it, just understand it. Elias agreed under strict conditions. They met in a neutral chamber. The air was clean, lighting even. The delegates gathered around him in a loose circle. Elias stood still while sensors scanned the suit externally. "It is not optimized for beauty," one delegate observed. "No," Elias agreed. "It is not optimized for status. No, it is not optimized for intimidation." Elias smiled slightly. "Definitely not."
"Then what is it optimized for?" another asked.
Elias thought carefully before answering. "Continuity," he said.
"It lets me keep going."
Silence followed.
"Even when things go wrong," Elias added.
A delegate with a faint humming voice spoke. "Your species prioritizes endurance over excellence." Elias shook his head. "We prioritize endurance so we can reach excellence," he said. "You don't get better if you don't survive long enough to learn." That statement changed the tone of the room. The scans ended. The delegates withdrew slightly, speaking among themselves in low tones. One finally turned back to Elias. "Your clothing is not a weakness," it said. "It is a confession." Elias raised an eyebrow. "Of what?" "That you do not trust the universe to be kind," the delegate said. Elias nodded. "We don't. And yet you came anyway." "Yes." "Unarmed." "Yes." "Open." Elias spread his hands. "Prepared," he corrected. That night, as Elias lay on the sleeping platform, he stared at the ceiling and thought about home. Earth was messy, loud, uneven. Systems failed there all the time. People argued. Cities broke. Storms came without warning. Humans learned early that stability was temporary. Maybe that was why this felt so familiar. The next cycle, The conclave agenda changed again. A new topic was added. Failure response frameworks. Elias nearly laughed when he saw it. During the discussion, species shared how they avoided failure, redundancy limits, strict controls, severe penalties for error. When it was Elias's turn, he spoke plainly. "We assume mistakes will happen," he said. "So we focus on what comes after." "What comes after?" a delegate asked. "Repair," Elias said. "Learning, adjustment, acceptance," another suggested. "Yes," Elias said. "That too." The room was quiet. "You do not fear being wrong," a delegate observed. Elias smiled. "We fear pretending we're never wrong." That line spread quickly. By the end of the session, Elias noticed subtle changes. Emergency exits more visible, backup systems openly displayed instead of hidden. Safety announcements phrased more calmly. The station was adapting. Not because of orders, because of an idea. As Elias left the chamber, Tresic walked beside him. "You have made many uncomfortable," she said. "Good uncomfortable or bad?" Elias asked. She considered. "Necessary," she said finally. Elias nodded. "That's fair." She stopped walking and looked at him directly. "Do humans ever rest?" she asked. Elias thought of his suit, his people, his home. "Sometimes," he said, "but we never assume we can." Tresic watched him go, her garments shifting softly. By simply refusing to change his clothes, Elias Rowan had done something no speech or treaty could have done. He had shown the galaxy a species that did not demand certainty, only resilience. And the idea was spreading. By the time the fourth cycle began, Elias Rowan no longer felt like an observer. He felt like a variable. The conclave station moved differently now. Not faster, not slower, just more carefully. Maintenance drones were visible where they used to be hidden. Backup lighting glowed faintly along corridors. Information panels displayed status data openly instead of burying it behind layers of approval. None of it had been ordered. It had been requested. Elias walked through the central corridor toward the chamber, his steps steady. His suit registered the subtle changes before his eyes did. Slight increases in power, additional environmental buffers active, extra safety margins. Someone had rewritten assumptions. When he entered the chamber, the attention was immediate, not sharp, not hostile, focused. Delegates had rearranged themselves. Those who floated stayed closer to stable fields. Those who relied on gravity chose reinforced platforms. Clothing styles had changed again. Still ceremonial, but stronger, layered, more functional. Elias took his place. The session opened without formal greetings. That alone was new. A delegate spoke directly. "Human ambassador, we have reviewed your explanations." Elias nodded. "All of them?" "Yes," the delegate said, "including the informal ones." Elias smiled slightly. "Those are usually the most honest." A soft ripple of agreement moved through the room. "We wish to ask a question," another delegate said.
"Not about your suit." Elias raised an eyebrow. "All right. About your people," the delegate continued.
"How do humans endure uncertainty without paralysis?" Elias leaned back slightly, considering. "We don't," he said.
Not always.
The room stilled. "We get scared," he continued. "We argue. We fail. A lot. That does not explain endurance," someone said. "No," Elias agreed. "It explains honesty." He looked around the chamber.
Endurance comes from deciding that fear isn't a stop signal, he said. It's information. That idea settled slowly.
Another delegate spoke. "Your systems accept error. Yes, your culture accepts weakness." "We accept limits," Elias corrected. "Weakness is pretending you don't have any." The translator delay made the silence longer than usual. During the break, Elias noticed something new. Delegates approached him not with questions, but with stories. One spoke of a transport system that had failed centuries ago, leading to strict design rules that allowed no flexibility afterward. Another described a society where mistakes were punished so severely that innovation slowed to a crawl. Elias listened more than he spoke. "You would allow systems to fail again?" one asked. "Yes," Elias said gently. "But we'd make sure they fail safely." That word, safely, kept returning. Later that cycle, Tresic joined him near a wide viewport overlooking the curve of space. "You are changing how they define strength," she said. Elias watched distant stars drift past. "I'm just describing how we survive." "They find it unsettling," she said. He nodded. "That makes sense." She folded her hands. "Many species equate control with safety." "And humans don't?" she asked. "We try," Elias said. "But we learned early that control is temporary." Tresic was quiet.
"So you prepare for its loss."
Yes. That evening, an announcement echoed through the station. A multi-species working group will be formed to examine adaptive design principles. Elias closed his eyes for a moment.
He had not expected that. The group met the next cycle: engineers, philosophers, cultural analysts. Elias was invited as an advisor. They sat around a shared table, its surface adjusting constantly. One delegate began, "We wish to understand human redundancy." Elias nodded. "Ask, why duplicate systems?" Another asked.
Is that not wasteful?
"It is," Elias said. "On purpose." That answer caused visible confusion. "Efficiency fails gracefully only if you let it," Elias continued. "Redundancy buys time." "For what?" someone asked.
To think.
Elias replied. The group paused. "To adapt," he added. That seemed to resonate. As discussions continued, Elias noticed that the questions shifted. They became less about his suit and more about human thinking. How do humans teach failure? By letting it happen, Elias said. In small, controlled ways. How do humans recover trust after mistakes? By admitting them, he said. How do humans face the unknown? Elias smiled faintly. Poorly, he said, but we show up anyway. That answer was recorded. Not long after, the station experienced another issue. This one was not planned. A data routing delay caused communication lag across several systems. Nothing critical, nothing dangerous. But noticeable. Delegates froze mid-conversation. Some retreated to personal fields. Others waited for instructions that did not immediately arrive. Elias noticed the delay, then noticed something else. People were looking at him again, not for reassurance. For example, Elias did what he always did, nothing dramatic. He waited. His suit displayed a quiet status update in his peripheral vision. System stable, delay expected. Correction underway. Elias leaned against a support rail, relaxed. Gradually, others followed. Someone laughed softly. Another sat down. Conversations resumed at a slower pace. When the delay resolved, no one applauded, but something had changed. Later, Tresic approached him with an unusual expression. "You did not intervene," she said. "There was nothing to intervene in," Elias replied. "You modeled patience," she said. He shrugged. "It's a skill you learn when things don't work right away." She studied him. "Your species would be considered reckless by many standards." Elias smiled. "We are. And yet," she said slowly, "you are trusted." That surprised him. The final session of the cycle was quieter, less formal. Delegates spoke openly. One addressed Elias directly. "Human ambassador, if your species assumes collapse, why seek cooperation?" Elias answered without hesitation. "Because collapse is easier together." The room went silent. "We don't believe we can survive everything alone," he continued, "so we don't try." That idea unsettled many. it also relieved some. As the session ended, Elias returned to his quarters feeling heavier than before, not tired, responsible. His suit sealed softly as he lay down, lights dimming automatically. For the first time since arriving, Elias wondered if the advice he had been given had been incomplete. Don't change. Be what you are. That was true. But maybe humanity was also here to show what it was becoming. The next day's agenda appeared. A proposal had been submitted. Humanity to assist in designing conclave-wide failure response protocols. Elias stared at the display for a long moment. Then he smiled. By refusing to change clothes, humanity had changed expectations. Not through force, not through fear, but through the quiet confidence of someone who knew things would go wrong and planned to be there when they did. And the galaxy, slowly and carefully, was beginning to prepare itself to fail better. The final cycle of the conclave arrived quietly. No grand announcement marked it. No special lighting or ceremonial music. The station simply adjusted its schedule, and everyone knew. This was the end of the summit. Decisions would be made now, even if no one said so out loud. Elias Rowan woke early. His suit had already adjusted the room temperature to match his natural comfort range. He sat on the edge of the sleeping platform and took a slow breath. For the first time since arriving, he felt the weight of expectation fully settle on his shoulders. Not pressure, trust. He walked through the corridor toward the main chamber, noticing how familiar the station had become. The once hidden systems were now part of the environment. Status panels glowed calmly. Emergency paths were clearly marked, not alarmingly, just honestly. The station felt more human. When Elias entered the chamber, conversations slowed. Not stopped, just softened. Delegates turned toward him openly now. No whispers, no confusion. Recognition. He took his place without ceremony. The session began with a simple statement from the conclave moderator. "This gathering will conclude today," the voice said. "Before we do, we will address changes proposed during the summit." Several delegates spoke. One by one, they spoke of transparency, of redundancy, of teaching younger species that failure was not disgrace, but data. They spoke of systems designed not to never break, but to recover when they did. Again and again, the ideas echoed the same theme: preparation over perfection. Elias listened quietly. Then the moderator spoke again.
Human Ambassador Elias Rowan,
The voice said, "You have been invited to address the conclave one final time." Elias stood. The chamber stilled. He did not step forward dramatically. He did not raise his voice. He simply spoke. "When humanity received the invitation to this place," Elias said, "we debated how to present ourselves." He paused, letting the translator settle. "We could have dressed for admiration," he continued. "We could have dressed for authority. We could have dressed to hide our fear." A few delegates shifted. "But we didn't," Elias said, "because we were afraid that if we tried to look perfect, we would lie." He gestured lightly to his suit. "This is not who we are at our best," he said. "This is who we are when things go wrong." Silence filled the chamber.
Humans don't believe the universe owes us safety, Elias continued. We believe it owes us honesty. He looked around.
"And honesty tells us that systems fail," he said. "Plans fail. People fail." A pause. "What matters is not avoiding failure forever," he said. What matters is what you do next." The chamber listened without interruption. "We don't prepare because we expect disaster," Elias said. "We prepare because we expect change." He lowered his hands. "If humanity is welcome here," he said, "then let it be as we are. Not unbreakable, not superior. Just stubborn enough to keep going."
When Elias sat down, the silence did not break immediately.
Then, slowly, delegates began to respond. Not with applause, with agreement. One by one, they activated acknowledgement signals. Different species, different cultures. Same meaning, acceptance. Tressick stood near the edge of the chamber, watching with something close to awe. She had never seen the conclave move this way. No debate, no counter-arguments, just understanding. Humanity had not arrived as conquerors. They had arrived wearing what they trusted when nothing else could be trusted, and that had been enough. Far away, on countless worlds, designs would change. Protocols would soften. Systems would gain backups, not because they were weak, but because they were honest. And somewhere in the records of the conclave, a small note would remain. The humans did not change clothes. They changed how the galaxy thought about failure. And by doing so, they made survival something shared, something possible, something human. She activated a small holographic display in the air between them. Symbols scrolled past, representing different delegations. Several species have requested clarification about your attire, she continued. Others have requested access to human manufacturing standards. One has requested a private audience with you. That sounds mixed, Elias said. It is, Treshik agreed. They do not understand why you would attend a diplomatic summit dressed for failure. Elias leaned back slightly. We don't dress for failure, he said. We dress for reality. Tressick studied him. Explain? Things break, Elias said simply. Plans change. Systems fail. Humans assume that from the start. She was quiet for a moment. Most species consider failure a sign of weakness. Then that's where we differ, Elias replied. We consider it inevitable. The display flickered as one symbol brightened. This delegation, Tressick said, was particularly disturbed. They believe your refusal to change clothing indicates refusal to adapt. Elias let out a small breath. That's ironic. Why? Because this suit exists only because humans adapt constantly, he said. We just don't do it by pretending nothing will go wrong. Tressick lowered the display. You speak as though collapse is normal. It is, Elias said, just not the end. The next day, the conclave reconvened. The atmosphere was different, less ceremonial, more alert. Elias noticed that several delegates had altered their own attire slightly. Fewer delicate fabrics, more structured designs. He didn't comment on it, but he noticed. As he took his position, the crystalline being from the previous session stood nearby again. Its surface reflected sharper light today. You remain unchanged, it said. Yes, Elias replied. Explain, the being said. Your kind had time to prepare. We did, Elias said. This is what preparation looks like for us. The moderator spoke again. The conclave recognizes humanity as a member species, the voice said, with advisory status in adaptive systems and failure response design. Elias closed his eyes briefly. Then the next statement followed. Additionally, the voice continued, the conclave proposes a revision to interstellar protocol. The chamber leaned in. Ceremonial standards will no longer require symbols of perfection, the voice said. Practical readiness will be considered equally valid. That caused a ripple. Elias felt his throat tighten. After the session ended, the chamber emptied slowly. Delegates approached Elias openly now. Some bowed, some offered gestures of respect, others simply nodded. One stopped in front of him. You did not change, the delegate said. Elias smiled faintly. No. And yet everything else did. Elias considered that. Sometimes that's enough. Later, as the station prepared for departures, Elias stood at a viewport again. The stars beyond felt less distant now. Tressick joined him. You were told not to change, she said.
Yes, Elias replied.
And you had nothing else to wear. That too. She watched him carefully. Do you regret it? Elias looked down at his suit, the scuffed fabric, the repaired seams, the quiet systems humming beneath. No, he said. It got me here, she nodded. Your people are unsettling. Elias chuckled softly. We hear that a lot, but also reassuring, she added. Elias turned to her. That's new. She smiled, a small, unfamiliar expression. You remind us that survival is not about elegance, she said. It is about honesty. When Elias boarded the human transport vessel, he felt something he hadn't expected. Not relief. Completion. As the ship pulled away from the station, he looked back once more. The conclave station glowed steadily, its systems open and visible, its structure quietly resilient.